that absorb the impurities. For years, the researchers experimented to get the right balance between fish and plants. Now, wastewater from the cities heats greenhouses and makes it possible to farm fish in the middle of the desert.
In another procedure, the wastewater is collected in basins. Sunlight, filter stones and aquatic plants combine to remove harmful substances before the water is used to irrigate the fields. 2/3 of Israel is desert, and the population is increasing ever faster. The country urgently needs to conserve water. To use supplies most efficiently, the farming industry will have to depend mainly on recycled water in future. In the Negev desert, underground hoses transport the filtered wastewater to the roots of crops. It's not yet clear if the plants show any signs of contamination.
The roots operate like a membrane, and the penetration or the infiltration of some of the hazardous materials is relatively poor. I would divide it into two kinds of materials. One is the pathogens, which cannot penetrate usually, and it might be, depending on the size of the molecules of the heavy metals, maybe some of them might enter, but I think it is to a very small extent.
In Israel, recycling is the solution in the struggle between cities and countryside for scant water supplies. Poorer countries can't afford such elaborate methods. Mexico City hasn't enough money to treat water for recycling. Wastewater from the city goes directly onto the surrounding fields, unfiltered. It's an example that shows how the most sophisticated technology is useless if there's no money to pay for it.
One of the things we're learning is that the industrial kind of farming that has been pushed for the last couple of decades may not be the best kind of agriculture for many traditional regions, and that old traditional methods of agriculture turn out to be much smarter for local regions.
But it's precisely in poorer countries that the use of fresh water is increasing dramatically. The flight of farmers from the land to the cities aggravates the problem. All these ecological refugees need clean water, and they must be fed. Some experts are calling for countries threatened with drought to import food, saying that would conserve scarce water supplies for the population. But most of these countries lack the money to buy food. Instead, the people in drought regions become dependent on aid programs.
Cleverly thought out irrigation techniques alone can't solve the water crisis. Many scientists are turning to genetic engineering. In the laboratories of the biotechnology industry, researchers are experimenting with plants genetically modified to grow especially well in drought regions.
Proponents of traditional farming methods, in contrast, put their faith in biological diversity. Certain rice varieties in India need extremely little water. Unfortunately, few farmers know of these varieties. The world-renowned Indian environmentalist Vandana Shiva is campaigning for the worldwide use of plants that need little water.
If the rains don't come, these crops still grow. They're usually no pests because the 12 crops provide wonderful habitat for pest-predator balance. And starting from next month onwards, one or the other crops will be ready. We've got maize, we've got finger millet, we've got sesame, we've got amaranth. 12 crops are the ultimate security. No irrigation, no pest control, no vulnerability to drought, and huge amounts of nutrition.
Farmers from all over India visit Vandana Shiva at her education center for sustainable agriculture. In seminars, the physicist turned environmental activist shows them how they can conserve water using indigenous crops. Shiva campaigns for what's called rain-fed agriculture, which depends entirely on rainwater. For that, she needs plants that can also survive after the monsoon season.
If we need to produce more crops per drop, then we need to have varieties like this than the water wasteful varieties of the industrial agriculture. We need crops like the mandua that use 300 millimeters rather than the 2,500 millimeters used by sugarcane as a cash crop. In fact, it's precisely by leaping into the future, anticipating the ecological vulnerability we have created.
We can change the things that we grow. We can move away from water-intensive crops like alfalfa and cotton and rice and pasture for cows to other kinds of crops that produce more money per unit water or produce more crop per unit of water. We can still grow alfalfa and rice and cotton and irrigated pasture, but let's grow less of it and grow more crops that are more productive.
But what farmers grow is often a political decision. In Uzbekistan, the canals are more polluted with pesticides than ever. In spite of the ecological disaster of the Aral Sea, the country still subsidizes the production of water-intensive cotton. After years of such cultivation, the fields have become too salty and infertile. Rice growing, which is also water-intensive, only worsens the situation. But there is hope things might change. Potatoes might be a solution. The organization Deutsche Welthungerhilfe, German Agro-Action, is providing high-quality seed tubers to grow potatoes, which need much less water.
Of course, potatoes need less water. But the main problem for me and other farmers is that we have no customers for potatoes. For cotton, we have guaranteed customers. The government buys our product, so we have no problems. We're not used to potatoes yet, and we don't have enough opportunities to sell our crops after we harvest them.
Without the donated seed tubers, the farmers would quickly lose money. It can take years before the availability of a new crop changes local eating habits. And traditionally, rice is the staple carbohydrate in Uzbekistan, not potatoes. At the local markets, most customers hesitate before buying them. Even sensible solutions need time before they catch on. And that's not just true in Uzbekistan.
Farmers are very smart, but they often grow things based on culture and tradition and the kind of equipment that they have. Over time, changes in technology, changes in patterns, changes in what their neighbors grow will lead to more efficient agriculture, will lead to more food production for a fixed amount of water.
But rivers still seep away before they reach the sea. Groundwater reservoirs still dry up, and steppes still become deserts. Water for the fields that produce our food is too precious to squander so recklessly.
Simple, decentralized solutions that involve local people and their practical experience, combined with the will to tackle the problem, are the only way out of the water crisis. We must avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. Our very existence depends on it.
We must not look backwards. We must not live today, we must see for tomorrow. We must live for this generation.